Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett, Campbell, Ferguson, and I'm here today at Wayfinder with my wonderful colleagues, Shaunette, and Patrick Belin. Mo, how you doing?
I'm here.
Yay!
I got nothing else.
You're here?
Like, every time you ask that question, I don't have a good answer.
You know, I'll tell you why I asked that question. So, because for people like who miss our names, like then they get to hear your voice as you're introduced. They can keep track of you. So in that light, it serves that purpose.
Right.
This is my voice.
So you really need to say nothing more. Yeah, it's actually perfect.
Let me introduce Mo. He's here. He's with beer, and with his Superman tattoo, he's got no fear.
You guys got your sliders. Can I get any food started for you?
I was going to get an order of fries.
I'm gonna order a fries. Cool.
And could I just get a pretzel with mustard?
Cool. No beer cheese for that?
Nah, it's okay.
No food, thank you.
Sounds good.
Cool if we do separate checks.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
We'll fix that in editing.
We will. We'll fix it in post. Oh yeah, and I think that's Patrick introducing Mo is the perfect way to introduce Patrick. Patrick, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited to talk about this film.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
You have no idea, or actually, you guys know me pretty well. You probably do. So we are here to talk about Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's new film about the evacuation of Dunkirk during World War II, and I'll just start off with the most basic question. Starting with you, Patrick, what did you think of the film?
It surprised me in a lot of ways. When I first heard about Dunkirk being attached to Christopher Nolan, I honestly didn't have a very good response to it. I thought it was like, seriously? I mean, Christopher Nolan doing one of the most boring genres that is the World War II film. So for a long time, I was not looking forward to this movie, actually. So actually seeing it, I feel like I was not prepared for the first time, which is why I felt like I needed to see it a second time to give it an honest review. And it surprises me in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
I know what you mean. I mean, like there was there's a universe in which this could have been like a very cookie cutter movie, I think, and yeah, I'll talk about that more later. But now, what about you, Mo? What'd you think of it?
This may be film bro heresy, but I thought it was okay. Like, just okay, you know. I like Christopher Nolan. I've never been completely absorbed by, like, into that fandom, into that worship of it, but he's a very talented storyteller and craftsman, and he knows filmic language forward and back. So it's a very well put together movie. It's very light on story and character, and that's kind of something that's something that matters to me as much
As
of
well, it should.
as much of a douchey thing that is to say.
Sacrilege, caring about story and character. No, what are you talking about, Mo?
Like just knowing what the time gimmick was going in, like it didn't surprise me. It was like,
that's very Nolan-y.
This is Christopher Nolan doing a World War II movie. This is exactly what you think it would be. So yeah, I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad it exists. I think it deserves Oscar nominations, at least for like editing and score, but it's not going to be in my like best of the year list.
Well, I mean, you both bring up really interesting points. I've thought a lot about the way the characters are portrayed in the film, and the first time I saw it, I was kind of surprised by the tactic he took, and because you think about every Christopher Nolan film, usually the backstory is laid out very carefully. Whether it's the story of Matthew McConaughey's wife being dead in Interstellar, or the story of Guy Pearce's wife being dead in Memento, or the story of Leonardo DiCaprio's wife being dead in Inception. Pretty much any dead wife story.
or Bruce Wayne's girlfriend in Rises.
Oh, so much death. No, but in all seriousness, I was
It's like the grown-up version of Disney. Instead of dead moms, it's dead wives.
absolutely. Well, and I mean, I was kind of like taken aback by the fact that there wasn't any of that in this movie. There's no backstory for any of the characters really. We're just very much thrown into this situation, and I was not really comfortable with it the first time I saw it, and I was a little frustrated. But then I kept thinking about the film, and then I was thinking, is there really a deficiency of character development? Is there? Because I was thinking this movie is so observant and observes its characters so well, and really reveals a lot about them, like through the choices they make. Whether it's Harry Styles' character's decision to scapegoat the French soldier. Whether it's Finn Whitehead's character's decision to stand up for the French soldier. Tom Hardy, making a very momentous decision at the end of the film that we'll talk about later. But that was one reason why I felt the need to go back again, and I came away, noticing more of these things and feeling a lot more affected by it and admiring it a lot more, to the point that I did really kind of fall in love with it, to be honest. But moving on, I do want to talk more about this question of character and the shall we say minimalist approach to character development, because it's a huge part of the film, and I want to know. I think I know the answer from what you already said, Mo. But if you just say a little more about this, like why did the approach to character work or not work for you?
I think it all comes down to author intent for me. It felt like it's sort of unconventional as a World War II movie. Because usually, all the soldiers, they do have some kind of backstory. Like this one, he's about to get married, or he's just
and that's
had a
the one
kid.
that's gonna die.
That's the one who's gonna die. I think in this case, no, it feels like Nolan was going for just like avatars. Like these were ideas of characters more than characters. So we got like
A pretzel?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you want ketchup with this?
ketchup will be great. Thank you. You've got like the people on the beach who have no idea what's going on, who are just trying to survive. You've got the thank you. You've got the people on the boats who each have their own agenda. Not necessarily. Let me take that back. Who each have their own way of looking at the war, as just like, are they terrified of it? Are they trying to run from it? Are they trying to do their duty and help out? And you got the people in the planes doing the same thing. There's soldiers following their orders. They're trying to fight for crown and country. None of them have names, as far as I know.
Well, yeah, and even though the names are in the credits, you don't hear them in the film.
Yeah.
So for
the
all
only
intents and
one I
purposes, they
remember
don't
is
have
like George Mills is mentioned in the newspaper at the end. And I don't know which one that was.
Right.
Because all the young, pretty, black-haired British boys look the same. But it's that's great. It's it is minimalist storytelling, but it's sort of the idea. It felt like Inception's idea taken to the nth degree.
You guys, should I take these out of the
Yeah.
bag?
Oh yeah, thank you.
It felt like Inception's idea taken to the nth degree, where it was a job needs to be done, and emotional ties are the distraction to it. Like, remember that grief was the biggest obstacle in getting things done in that movie. So now,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's like characters' personal issues don't matter. It's all about surviving and saving all these people.
Sure. Patrick, what about you? What do you think
So,
about the question of character? in the
Sure.
film?
Of course, the more I do, the more I think about it, the production decision to not focus on too much on any one character, I think, was a pretty bold decision, because we're so conditioned to, of course, the usual plot and storytelling, which is wonderful, but for them to kind of pull back away from that, and I think I mentioned this in my review, how by doing so, by making the decision that they did, it really does emphasize that this whole war, this event, is everybody's story. And if I were to try to understand where Christopher Nolan is coming from, it's as if he was trying to do justice to the fact that there were 400,000 lives on that beach, and he was trying to do justice to all of them individually, as opposed to trying to make a film that focuses on the film for itself. He tried to do justice to the event as it exists in reality, in historical reality. So I think it was a very bold decision, even though, I mean, the first time I saw the film, it was a little difficult for me to latch onto, because that's what I was
challenging
expecting.
to follow,
Yeah,
for sure,
it was challenging to me to follow it. But after the second viewing, after knowing what to expect with the way the film was put together, it really had a stronger impact on me, I think, emotionally.
And you could even think of this in the context of his decision to create composite characters and not, do specific people. We're not. This isn't about I mean, the characters are all representational of multiple people at Dunkirk, as opposed to this is the story of Henry, this very brave soldier who really distinguished himself there. It's kind of anonymous stories.
Let me just kind of add to this as well, that the as an ensemble piece, it was done very fucking well. The acting was great in this.
Oh yeah,
everybody's
Absolutely,
acting was spot on in this.
he's good at that.
I was going to get into this later as we get into more technical aspects of the movie, but I would actually give the guy who played Tommy, if I were to submit my Oscar nomination.
The main guy, Thin Whitehead, yeah.
Okay.
Sort of the main guy, not really.
The dude who was taking a crap at the beginning.
Right.
Did he ever find a place to take a dump?
No, never.
Like, was that his modus operandi for the next week? Was just find a place to take a dump?
Talk about character motivation.
It's very relatable.
Oh, amazingly.
I mean, I would call him the anonymous soldier in this film, and I would actually give him a nomination for best actor.
Oh,
because,
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
a lot of his performance, even though it wasn't heavy on dialogue, a lot of it reminded me of Tom Hanks's performance in Castaway, where a lot of it was very visual, was very had to come through from his body language, and you could see it in his eyes that he really internalized the role that he was playing.
Yeah,
and I was mesmerized by it.
Well, I think one of the best parts of the film is when they're him and the French soldier carrying the guy in the stretcher to the boat, and you have to understand in that moment that they picked up the stretcher so they can get on, not because they're trying to save him, but because they're trying to save themselves,
that theme of survival was so constant throughout the entire film.
But they don't discuss that, they don't spell it out, so it's a heavy burden on the actors, really, and I think they shoulder it, pretty well, and like I was even Tom Hardy, who almost had nothing but his voice and his eyes to act with. Why does that seem so familiar? I wonder. I mean, with both of his asses.
He's doomed to wearing a mask.
Although at least Cillian Murphy didn't have a bag on his head this time.
Yeah.
But
I would have appreciated it if at some point during the movie, while shooting at other biplanes in the middle of dogfights, if Tom Hardy just yelled, "Witness me!"
Yes! Oh, that would have made me so happy. Yeah.
Would have totally taken me out of the movie, but I would have loved it. Would have been a terrible creative decision, but I would have loved it.
It would have been a terrible yet strangely badass creative decision. Or if he did an homage to The Revenant, it's like, I gotta fly the plane so we can get them pails. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I really admire what the actors did, and I think I know Christopher Nolan talked a lot about silent movies, doing this film, and also I mean I know he applied that to The Dark Knight Rises as well, but when I think of silent cinema in this century, I don't think of the artist, which I really kind of despise, frankly. I think I think more of films like Drive, where you have a character who doesn't speak, you're relying a lot on glances, on flickers of the eye, and that kind of thing. And I was really impressed with how that kind of stuff comes through in Dunkirk, like that moment when when Kenneth Branagh at the end, his character Commander Bolton, thinks he's going to die. He closes his eyes, he accepts his fate, and then he's saved by Tom Hardy, swooping above, and you really I think you see that transition from fear and acceptance to elation, and there's some pretty subtle and clever stuff going on there, and as well as the dynamics on the boat, I think are really really well done. My dad and I were kind of freaking out about that moment when the blonde kid in the turtleneck, played by Tom Glencarney, when he makes the decision to lock Cillian Murphy in, and he's looking at the latch, and you can see him thinking, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? He doesn't do it, but he does it anyway.
That's also in the cinematography. That's also knowing how to point the camera, how to stage a shot. So it's this is where your eye is focused. This is what you're supposed to look at and intuit data from.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I mean, we got to give a shout out to the cinematographer, Hoyte van Hoytema, who really.
Man.
Oh yeah, yes.
He's on my radar now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's. He's done this. He did Interstellar. He did Her. He did The Fighter. There's a real.
Has he won an Oscar yet?
No, he hasn't. He should. But there's a detail and a texture to his work that I think is really really kind of extraordinary.
I was quite impressed with his work on Interstellar.
Yes, yeah.
But he wasn't yet on my radar. I thought I'd get more familiar with him. But after this film, I was like, wow, a film that is strictly visual. That he was almost like the second director in this movie. Absolutely. He had to be the second director in this movie. I think he hit it out of the park, frankly.
Well, and I think too, when we think Christopher Nolan movies, we think characters having philosophical conversations. Some men just want to watch the world burn. That kind of thing. And so that in the other films he's done, dialogue very much carries the weight, and here, that's not really the case. I mean, you need an image like those, planes out in the middle of the channel with the water stretching out beyond what the eye can see to really communicate with the audience, and that's a huge burden on the cinematographer.
And a side note on that, I love how the film just wasn't visual effects heavy, and how you can create a cinematic experience without having so much computer graphics.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, he's a champion of practical effects, from the jump. He actually did flip an 18-wheeler in Dark Knight.
Yeah. He flipped a real hallway in Inception as well.
They built the hallway and then just put it on a sound stage and spun it around and put all the actors on wires. So I appreciate that. That having been said, I would be interested to see what he could do with motion capture. Just because how we've mentioned, he is an actor's director and he can get performances like that. If he works with someone like Andy Serkis or Doug Jones to do stuff like that, that would be something. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, because I always I'm always leery of going into the CGI realm, because I don't even think it's a stretch to say that most films get it wrong. But then again, we were talking about War for the Planet of the Apes earlier, and
it's a movie that you need good CGI.
Yeah,
because it's just physical acting from CGI chimpanzees.
Yeah,
to move the story forward.
Well, and you bring up Andy Serkis, and Andy Serkis, I think, is someone who really you can see him in any CGI character he plays. I mean,
but he's top tier physical acting. He was on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Stephen Colbert asked.
I saw that. Yes. Yeah.
He asked Andy Serkis to, as Gollum, read Donald Trump's tweets, and so before he gets into being Gollum, he has to crouch down on the chair and get into the right physical pose, and then he does the voice.
What is my precious?
But I would like to see. I honestly would like to see Christopher Nolan stretch himself. This felt. I'm not going to say safe, but it felt like something that was very much in his wheelhouse. Like, it's a natural extension. Again, it reminded me a lot of Inception, in just like a group of people. A group of people trying to get one specific job done, and just the playing with time and cutting back and forward to the different perspectives. So yeah, I don't know. I that's what I would like to see, see him push himself.
Well, I'll say one.
I'm not saying he didn't push himself here. He clearly did. Like, I just want to see what he does next, I guess. That's what I'll say.
Sure, yeah, no, and I mean, there are avenues I want to, see him go down for sure that he hasn't gone there yet. Like, I really, for instance, want to see him direct a film that's not a thriller or an action film. I think it'd be fascinating to see him, do, like, a character-driven piece where, like, Michael Caine's living by the seashore, or something like that.
That would require a certain level of emotional understanding that I don't know if he has.
I don't agree with that, but here's what I think about, like, the idea of him pushing himself. I think he pushes himself, like, incredibly far every time.
I'm not saying I'm trying. This is coming off bad. I'm not trying to say he's lazy or that he's, like, phoning it in, but, like, this is a movie I would expect from him. Is what I'm saying.
Well, It wasn't quite what I expected, and I'll tell you why. I mean, you look back at Following, his first film. Following is about a young writer who gets ensnared by this criminal, and then he gets betrayed. And really, the sum of this film is, this poor writer is a really stupid little asshole. Like, you're not meant to feel sorry for him. You're not meant to care about his emotional state. It's just kind of like, ha, he got screwed over. Then you go to Memento, suddenly you have a character who's a widower, who's grieving, who's, and you care about his motivation, about his emotional state, and, then you start going a little further. In Insomnia, you get into a cop who's trying to do the right thing but goes down the wrong path. You get into Batman, where you finally get a Nolan character with a family history. You get into Interstellar, which takes that to an extreme, which is, suddenly it's not a noirish hero. It's just, basically a normal family man who happens to be in an extraordinary situation. And I do see what you mean, Mo, about, like, there being a logical extension, because, it makes sense to go from, I think, the normal man in an extraordinary situation in Interstellar to, in Dunkirk, an extraordinary but true situation, where you kind of strip away the Nolan crutches, you strip away the philosophical dialogue, you strip away the kind of labyrinthine backstory, and you keep those concerns. You keep those concerns with time and, some of the themes of, like, sacrifice and from Interstellar and The Dark Knight, but you take it in, like, a more, I would say, like, naturalistic direction, where you don't have, again, like, characters, stopping to say things like in Memento, like, I can't remember to forget you, like, where it's like, I think it's a different kind of thing, but I agree with you in the sense that, I mean, I think there are places he can go that he hasn't gone yet that I want to see him go, because, it's like at the end of The Dark Knight Rises when Catwoman says, you've given these people everything, and he says, not everything, not yet.
So you want Christopher Nolan to kill himself while making a movie?
No, please, no. If it came off like that, I retract everything I said. I want him to be making movies when he's 90.
It's gonna be like one of those super intense, like, he has to get everything perfect, so he's the one who has to fly a plane with a bomb attached to it to make sure he gets the shot right.
Well, to quote another superhero film, with great power comes great responsibility, so, or great talent in this case. But, sorry, you were going to say something.
No. I get what Mo was saying earlier about Christopher Nolan kind of retreading familiar territory. If anything, the entire Dunkirk kind of I can see the similarities to what they were doing in the final scene of Inception, because they're doing a lot of playing with time. There's a lot of tension, and I felt like they were replaying a lot of those elements into Dunkirk, which we haven't gotten to this subject yet, but I thought was maybe not the best choice.
Just the time stuff?
Right.
Yeah, say more about that. Yeah, you talked about it in your review.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, especially since I wrote my review. After seeing it twice, I do feel that it probably wasn't the best decision, and I've been thinking about how I would have done it differently, but that's a whole different conversation. But it was, I guess I would kind of agree with what Mo was saying. It's a little gimmicky, this time thing that what they were trying to do. And I can imagine at the executive level that it really sold the Warners on it. It sounds like a really fascinating idea, but where it works with Inception, I'm not so sure that it works in Dunkirk.
Well, I mean, I feel that it does work in the sense that like for me, there's a beginning where I think they cut from either the beach or from Tom Hardy to the boat, Mark Rylance's boat being loaded, and to me, kind of like this sense that like these people, they're not physically working together. They're in fact, working on this operation at different times. But even though they're not literally in synchronization, they're sort of part of the same movement. And I was drawn to that aspect of it, and also. I didn't catch this the first time. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but if you notice, we see Cillian Murphy in the beach scenes.
I did notice that.
Yeah. We see him on the boat, and we see him, before he's shell shocked, but then in the next scene, because of the playing with time, we see him, broken down and manic, and I think the playing with time like enabled you to show those distinctions and hit home, this is what this event does to people alike, and I think it was effective in that regard. And if anything, I'm surprised that the intercutting wasn't more aggressive, because it felt.
Perhaps it could have been executed better.
I thought it worked fine personally. I think, like, if we're going back to this idea of, like, the characters are minimalist because in order to do, like, this story justice, we can't just focus on one made-up person. We have to focus on these ideas of people. Then, in order to do this event justice, we can't just, like, compress and make it easy and be like, oh, they all showed up to the beach at the same time just by coincidence. It's gotta be that there was all this work that went into them. It was like a week of trying to survive on the beach. It was a day of travel and picking up survivors on the sea, and it was an hour of providing air support from the air.
Right.
It did feel a little gimmicky, but it works for me, and it gave the film a little bit more of a hook. Like, if they're not going to hang it on character development and stuff, then, or not, I should say, on characters solo. Then it leaves more of an impact with the playing with time. It would make the film more memorable.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Like, I instantly, I think, like you, Patrick, I thought about Inception when I heard about this concept of, a week, a day, an hour, And it's funny, like, in Inception it was more pronounced, like kind of in the way that, like, like.
Well, they kept reminding us. That's why.
Well, yeah, because that's
we
true.
keep cutting back
that's
to
true.
that van falling off the bridge.
Yeah, because
there was also a big build-up that we were expecting it.
Yeah, and then you get, like, you visually see this idea that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's running around this hotel in the moment that it takes this van to fall, and like for better or worse, I think Dunkirk is more like disorienting. Like I wasn't even really thinking at a certain point, like, oh, this is an hour, this is a day, this is a week. You know, it's all very kind of fluid. You know.
And again, this is I big ups to the editor. I don't know what their name is.
Lou Smith.
Lou Smith. He did a hell of a job cutting it together. Like, it all flows. It all you can keep up with all the individual stories. It never feels too jarring. It works really well. So big ups to him.
He's a big part of why Christopher Nolan is successful, because he's edited all his films since Batman Begins.
Has he won an Oscar?
No, and he only got nominated for The Dark Knight, as far as I know. So you know,
I guess my issue with it is, while it clearly worked, and when I think about it, when I study it logically, it makes a lot of sense. Like I get it, I get what they're trying to do. It's just my takeaway, my experience of actually viewing it. I'm not sure that it accomplished what they set out to accomplish in my viewing experience.
Sure, say more about that.
I'm sure it worked for a lot of people, and if anything, this issue is probably going to divide people.
I'm sure,
there are going to be people like me who wasn't sure that it worked. But anyways, so playing with time like this is very complicated, because you got a week, a day, and an hour, and there are different energies to each of them. But when you try to mishmash them in like this sort of like fruit salad kind of way, I feel like something is lost, is what I'm saying. I just feel like something is lost in translation.
Do you think he should have messed with the chronology, not quite so much, like try to follow it more like in a timeline of like not like kind of, you know, mashing the day hour week stuff together as much?
Let me put this in a cooking analogy. I feel like the chef was more concerned with his skill in putting the dish together, and not so concerned about the person who's actually going to eat it.
Okay.
I get that.
Is where I'm coming from with this.
Like it was kind of like you feel like it's a technique he was caught up in.
It was more about showing off than about effectively telling the story.
Yes, or maybe he was contractually obligated to be like, okay, we hired you because of your work on Inception. Do something similar.
I don't know, but the optimist in me wants to say that Warner Brothers just gave him a dump truck full of money and said, do whatever.
I mean,
and we'll slap your name on it and make $100 million.
He's Chris Nolan. I mean, he could film a rock for 2 hours and they'd probably greenlight it.
And everyone would be, you know, sitting around like talking about what is men, you know?
And all the film bros would be ecstatic about it.
Like, oh, this is the best practical effect ever.
It would be a very existential rock.
Cillian Murphy would voice The Rock.
Oh, who else? Who else would do it? Yeah. Or Michael Caine.
Or Michael Caine.
You know?
He has a rock father, who's played by Michael Caine.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is an interesting thing. Like, you know, one thing that I like an adjective I hear like thrown like at a lot of directors is the word fussy, and it's basically used to like apply to directors who are not Richard Linklater. Because like the thing about Richard Linklater is, I don't think Richard Linklater is sitting around like trying to come up with the perfect beautiful shot. Like I think he shoots in a very simple, economical way that keeps the focus on character, and you know, and I see. I see like kind of the the merit to the arguments about certain directors like Christopher Nolan showing off, but for me personally, I'm kind of drawn to fussy movies. Like like I feel like I don't know, I kind of there's something beautiful about a fussiness and a kind of
if
authorship.
That effort comes across on screen, it makes the movie more endearing. It makes it more engaging.
Yeah.
Just like the amount of work that went like. Sticking with Christopher Nolan, watching the hallway fights, the zero gravity hallway fight in Inception, just
incredible. Yeah.
Even with and without the special effects, it's just the amount of work into choreographing it and into figuring out how to shoot it and into the actor performances and seeing it all come to life. That's all on screen.
Yeah.
Like, you don't miss a beat of that. And
well, you get caught up in the adrenaline. And
and it sticks with you.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But do you guys have anything more to say about this topic, or should we move on?
About the editing,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
I
time
would-
jumping.
despite what I was saying about the editing, I still think that they succeeded in keeping this tension throughout.
Sure,
And I think
sure.
that actually really worked.
Yeah.
It's that there's always the risk that someone's gonna die. Like that's how it works. Like it's very much about immediate problem solving. It's immediately just like find the thing. It calling back to The Martian of all features. Just like find the problem in front of you, solve it, move on to the next one. And so we've got the people on the beach trying like every angle they can to survive, to get out of France. We've got the people in the air shooting down ships whenever they see one. We've got the people on the sea dealing with like trying to rescue survivors. It's always just take care of the problem in front of you, while also going through like the overall arcing problem of survive.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how they maintain the tension.
Well, I'll just say one more thing about this. I remember one thing I read about Gravity. I think it was someone in Entertainment Weekly who wrote this, but they said that sort of the logistics of how to dodge debris and whatnot. That is the story of Gravity. But in a way, Dunkirk is even more extreme because Gravity had a dead kid to explain the heroine's state of mind, and there's a.
Thank you.
Do you guys want anything else to do?
I'm good.
I think I'm good. Yeah, thank you. And there's there's nothing like that in Dunkirk, so it's kind of interesting. But one thing I wanted to get into with this guy, with you guys is I think war films have a very tough line to walk because A.O. Scott wrote it's in the nature of moviegoers to find pleasure in what they see, but in the case of a war film, you watch often real events, tragic events, for entertainment, and I was curious to hear what you guys thought about like how this movie threads the line between being an entertainment, which it is, I certainly think, and like trying at least on some level to communicate the horror of the situation.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think I don't know. I don't want to call it a genre, but war movies, World War II, whether it's World War II, Vietnam, or whatever war movies, they're just naturally loaded because everybody is involved with this type of war. There's no one is isolated from this war, regardless of how they like to lie to themselves. So, I would imagine that the filmmakers, Chris Nolan, they felt they had a responsibility, and I think a lot of that had to play into their production decision to not make this to make this more of an ensemble story rather than a focused character plot type of story.
Sure.
Just to try to do that aspect of it justice. I think they succeeded in it.
Well, you bring up where you're talking about like kind of an ensemble and everyone being involved. It made me think about the wording of the dedication at the end, which was very interesting. It wasn't dedicated to Dunkirk veterans. It was dedicated to all the people whose lives were affected by Dunkirk, and that's, I think, that's the film in a nutshell.
Does that include German soldiers?
I don't know.
Of course, I'm no military historian, but from what I understand, this was a huge, colossal disaster for the British, and Hitler kind of went into it at the last minute with a little too much bravado. Like if Hitler was in the Roman times, they probably would have just slaughtered the 400,000 troops immediately. But they were they took their time with it, and it allowed the British to formulate this plan to use small ships to evacuate the troops.
Wow.
Which of course brought the U.S. into the war, and which emboldened the Allies and eventually defeated Hitler. But anyways.
That's another thing I noticed, is that we barely see anything from German soldiers.
Which I thought was fucking brilliant.
I think it works. It's it not only like just focuses on there's a lot of things that are just suddenly popping into my mind about this. But one of them is that it feels like the villain in the piece is the war itself. Like it's not just individual people; it's this larger than life conflict, and it's like some. I watched a video recently. Lindsay Ellis, who does video essays, which are extremely brilliant and they're worth watching. Go check them out on YouTube. She did one about Mel Brooks movies, and specifically the producers and the ethics of satire. And she talked about that in relation to The Great Dictator. And the thing about The Great Dictator is that it doesn't take place in Germany. It takes place in a made-up country. The main character is not Hitler. He's Adenoid Hinkle. And he never speaks German. It's just gibberish that sounds vaguely like German.
And Charlie Chaplin was quite a skilled gibberish speaker, you know?
So it's like the German army and the Nazis, they don't get the dignity of appearing in this movie satirizing them. But the Jews do. And it makes no mistake, like, these are the victims of Nazi Germany. These are the people who are suffering. So it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean, and I mean a couple things. First of all, the text at the beginning of the movie doesn't say the Germans; it says the enemy, I believe, which is interesting and I'm sure deliberate. And then I don't think there's any problem with getting into spoilers for a movie based on a true story. So here we go. The most notable death of a character in the film is the boy, George, who basically gets, killed.
That was who George was?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yes. Because we saw the name George Mills at the end, and I don't know which one was he.
Yeah, the kid who Cillian Murphy accidentally kills. Yeah. So he gets killed, like, not, by a German soldier, but by a shell-shocked soldier who's, flaying around
despite
because
the circumstances of the event.
Yeah, and so I think that, like, had he been killed by, a German soldier, the message would have been, oh, those damn Nazis, Instead, the message is, this damn war, and that, I think that's the takeaway.
That's stronger.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's stronger, but that's fresher.
It is, yeah.
In terms of an allegory or moralizing of the existence of this film, I think for me the most important scene in that regard is when the young soldiers were inside of the boat and they were waiting for the tide to come.
Oh, yes.
The exchange between Harry Styles and Tommy and the French soldier.
Yeah.
I think they were representing, like, different sides of humanity. Like, Harry Styles was like that devil on the shoulder, and Tommy was like the angel on the shoulder, and just telling that story, that human story about it. And of course, there's the tension of the enemy, like, shooting at the boat. Yeah. I thought that was a very important scene.
I think for me, like, the one that kind of sticks with me, that kind of sums up the whole movie, is at the very end. They get back to England, and the guy gives them, like, a piece of toast and some tea or something,
right?
Because they're British.
It's a very British movie.
And he says, "Thank you for your courage," and they're like, "We didn't do anything but survive," and he's like, "That's enough."
Yeah.
Yes.
That guy's Christopher Nolan's uncle, by the way.
Oh, well, that explains a lot. But like, that for me is like, that's the movie in a nutshell. Is like, there is courage in living through this, if you can maintain your humanity, but in surviving these horrors, there is something to that.
Well, yes, because the expectation was that they were going to be slaughtered.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
like, they say it up front. It's like, we're going to get, like, maybe 30,000.
Maybe 30. Like, that's
like
Churchill's
a tenth
expectations.
of the people there.
Yeah. That would have been crushing. Oh my goodness.
It would have changed the course of history.
It would have definitely changed the course of history. The Allies may have not had the advantage that they did at the start. Churchill would never have made that speech, etc. So it was a huge thing.
I want to say more about the the scene in the boat, with the conflict with Harry Styles, and again, Harry Styles. I mean, I can't believe we're having
Good for him.
conversations. Yeah, he was very good.
I never had
surprisingly.
anything against those One Dimension boys.
I'm not
I like
familiar,
it. I like it.
They seem like nice kids.
Nice, good lads. But Harry Styles has a really interesting line in that scene where, when he wants to send the French soldier out there, he says, "Survival isn't fair," which is the closest.
There's truth to that.
Yeah, it's one of the few times when the movie gets into philosophical Nolan-y territory. But
I felt like I was back watching The Walking Dead again.
but you see what that scene is really about is sacrifice, and Harry Styles wants to sacrifice someone else, and the characters who look the most heroic in the movie are really the characters who are willing to give something up, like Mark Rylance, having this kid bleeding on his boat saying sorry, we can't take him back, we've got hundreds of thousands of soldiers to consider,
Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yes, yeah.
Can I
I'm going to see that movie in OMSI too.
I should add that I was personally blown away by Mark Rylance in this film.
He's still good.
If anything,
There was no BFG, but it was still good.
Of BFG, I kind of loathe that movie, but I actually would nominate him for Best Supporting.
Yeah.
I thought his performance was that good.
Yeah. He was definitely
It's
a standout.
very upfront. So it's like he's just here to be like, I'm the soul of the movie, and then he is,
Yeah.
and he does a good job.
He does.
He met expectations.
I was really struck by something he said, where he says, Cillian Murphy says something like, men your age, shouldn't be going out here, and he says, Mark Brown says something like, men my age, set the course of this war, and we, send our children to fight it, and this idea of responsibility and it,
That
again,
really hit me.
yeah, and again, it kind of like reminded me of Interstellar and McConaughey, sacrificing his family basically to save humankind, and it's I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I see the two films as being of a piece.
It colored everything else as well for me. I mean, here we are looking at these young kids about to die. They'd probably never even kissed a girl or gone on a date with anybody, and it's just heartbreaking for me to watch this.
Yeah.
And I like that they chose to stick with the rated R. That way you're not distracted with the whole.
No, it was
Or
13.
That it was not. What I'm saying is that I'm glad it was not, because they didn't want to distract with the whole violence porn thing. They stuck to the
That's
message
something
of the film.
I appreciated. Like it's not gruesome for the sake of gruesomeness. I appreciate. I honestly, after watching, God knows how many seasons of Game of Thrones are there now? Like 7. I'm appreciating like people who can recognize when gore is warranted.
Yeah.
But it's like, we don't need to show you a decapitated head or a guy with his arm cut off or something.
Exactly.
Or a guy who's been skinned, or
None of that.
or a limb that's about to be eaten, or
Yeah. So
I mean, I felt it was a bit much, even in Saving Private Ryan, even though it was technically appropriate or something.
I would get it. It's been a while since I saw Saving Private Ryan, but I would get it there. I would understand that. It's very much nitty gritty, like in the shits.
Yeah, that's their decision, the production decision.
well, I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to speak to the people who said this movie should be R-rated, and for me to gloat over them
Completely
a bit.
disagree.
Because
First of all,
well,
I work at a movie theater that is showing it. You know how many people we have turned away with an R rating? I don't want to do that. I hate doing that.
Yeah.
I do that all the time, and I don't like it. But I still do it because it's my job. God dang it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I said from the beginning, the Dark Knight films were PG-13. Those are some of the most terrifying films I've seen. Tom Hardy broke a dude's neck in it, and there was no blood, no shot of the bones cracking, and it was still one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen on screen. And I knew that within a PG-13 rating, he would find the right level of intensity, and he did. And I think this is such a contrast to Hacksaw Ridge, which just rubs your face in the blood and the guts and the rats feasting on dead bodies, and it doesn't honor what those
Seriously?
soldiers. Yeah, it doesn't honor what
I'm
those
glad
soldiers.
I didn't see it then.
Yeah. Oh, it's
I'm already
horrible.
glad I
It's an
didn't see it.
awful movie, and that doesn't honor what the soldiers went through. In my opinion, it
It fetishizes their suffering.
exactly
Yeah.
it fetishizes the gore. You know, it fetishizes the suffering, and I think what Dunkirk did is so much smarter. You know, I mean, it's a frightening movie. You know, I mean,
It is. It's a horrific movie.
It is, you know,
I was
but
terrified.
but you don't, you know, you're not getting like, you know, Refn-esque splatters of blood, you know,
Yeah,
It's the
poetically
horror
shot.
is from the actors and it's from all the elements. It's the actors and the cinematography and again the editing and the score and all these incidental elements. It's not just buckets of fake blood.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably all agree that this is a case where less is more.
Yes,
you know?
yes,
I mean,
absolutely. And I love how they by not showing the Nazis, it actually elevated the suspense.
Yeah,
It was like, okay, where's Michael Myers going to show up?
That would have been
Now
an
that's
interesting
an
twist
interesting
for the boat scene.
What if Mike Myers was in this movie since he was in Inglourious Bastards?
Okay, yeah, I'm not opposed. I liked him in Glorious Bastards.
But it's really interesting because, you know, the decision to not really show, you know, the enemy. I mean, you know, surely that's what it must have felt like to a lot of the soldiers. You know, I think that's a pretty crafty decision. So one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the ending. I mean, it's no secret what happens. You know, the operation's successful. They get away, but it's pretty interesting what happens. It's pretty interesting how it happens, and kind of, you know, how he chooses to wrap it up with Tom Hardy and Ben Whitehead's characters especially. So I'd just like to hear you guys' thoughts about the ending.
That was the visual aspect of it. I think the actual ending was having, was it Tommy?
Yeah.
Tommy read Churchill's famous speech from the paper. I think that was the main point of it.
Yeah.
And the visual aspect of watching Tom Hardy's plane land on the beach, I think was just for closure.
Sure.
Like this is like the only editing hiccup I noticed, or at least it felt weird to me. Is just the final shot is like the voiceover of him reading from the paper, and then we see Tom Hardy on the beach. His ship is burning. He's being captured by the enemy, and then we cut back to Tommy for like 1 second, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And that felt weird to me.
Well, I wanted to talk about that actually because there was Nolan likes to go out with the big flourish. You know, he likes to go out with, you know, Christian Bale swooping toward the camera in Batman Begins, or literally riding into the sunrise in The Dark Knight, or even going back
The spinning top.
The spinning top, yes, yeah, absolutely. Or, you know, in Interstellar, Anne Hathaway, you know, on an epic-looking deserted planet. But this was different. You know, there was a way to go out in an epic way, and the epic way would have been to have the plane burning be the last shot, you know. But instead, he cuts back to Tommy, and I believe you can hear the sound of him flipping the page of the newspaper. And I thought that was a metaphor for like on to the next conflict. Like, the fight's not over yet, not only in World War II, but, you know, the fight against fascism today. That was what I thought that was about.
That's an interpretation.
I felt the decisions were 100% appropriate because, as I said earlier, I felt like Tommy, if the main character, in scare quotes, he represented the 400,000 soldiers, and the whole main theme of the film was survival. So to end the film showing Tommy's face one last time, to emphasize the fact that they did survive and history turned out the way it did, I think was wholly appropriate. And it probably isn't as visually epic by not ending with Tom Hardy's burning plane or whatever, which I get. It's much more visually appealing, but the Tom Hardy's character is secondary to Tommy's character, I think.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
I think it was appropriate for them to go from that scene. You know, it's a grand scene to say goodbye to the grandeur of the Dunkirk scene, the beach scenes, but then emphasize the fact that this is about survival, and Tommy did survive at the end, and this was a happy ending, despite the fact we know that these boys were sent out to other war missions and they probably died later.
Sure, yeah,
So-
yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting, like the scenes like away from Dunkirk at the end, like on the train, you know, walking toward the train. They almost don't even feel real in a way because we're immersed in the war for so long that it's like when they're back, it's like,
That just
is this really happening? Like,
hit them on the train, and there's someone running next to them giving them a beer,
yeah,
like through the window.
It's like, I don't know, the
They were
strangeness of that's really incredible.
They were expecting a bigger slaughter out of this event.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
Everything was decided so quickly. It was decided in the space of a week, literally.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable.
Yep.
Well, and also, just to go back to Tom Hardy, you know, for me, I mean, films have like so much in common with music, you know, and for me, like the image of the plane like gliding down towards the beach was almost like kind of like the crescendo, like the unifying force, like bringing things to a close, and just, you know, like he's very calmly standing there, and like, you know, it's very quick, you know, you see like in silhouette, you know, German soldiers grab him and take him away, and like when he makes that choice, he knows he's going to run out of fuel, and he does it anyway, and he saves a lot of lives, and that's you know, this isn't, in some ways this is a very unsentimental, you know, portion of Dunkirk, because you see self-interest on display, and understandably so, like when, you know, they're telling, you know, they have to say to the French guys, you know, like, you can't get on the boats, you know, and, you know, well, maybe they're condemning them to death by saying that, but then you get moments like Tom Hardy, you know, saying no, the lives of everyone else, you know, are more important than mine. Again, Wrath of Khan illusion.
There was that point.
It's a powerful thing. Yeah.
There was that point where Tom Hardy was flying along. He saw his fuel. He could have continued. He could have turned around and started flying towards the English coast. But at the last minute, he knew that he didn't do enough to get that bomber. So he turned around and pursued the bomber, and it saved a lot of lives. And you know that was a really pivotal scene for that thread, for that song.
It was, and I like.
Because he ended up getting captured.
Yeah, and it goes by kind of wordlessly, but I think it's interesting, like, you know, where you see the moment where he, you know, maybe signs his own death warrant. You know, I mean, we don't
but
know what happened.
It shows his commitment to serving his fellow troops.
Yeah. I think that's pretty wonderful.
That's pretty powerful for me, actually.
Yeah.
Because he could have gone the Harry Styles route and just went back to England.
Right. Well, yeah, for you know, and I think it's kind of like interesting, like Harry Styles like says of the old guy who says that's enough. He says, you know, like that bloke wouldn't even look at us, like kind of like, you know, oh, he's so, you know, he's so disappointed in us for, you know, whatever. But, you know, I thought that guy couldn't look at them because he was blind. I thought he seemed blind.
Oh, he was blind.
You know, so, and like, but I think it's kind of funny that Harry Styles interprets it that way. It's like he mistakes a blind guy for, you know, casting aspersions on his commitment.
It just shows how focused he is on himself.
Yeah. And
I caught that.
And the more you think about it, the more you think like the cannier the casting is, like casting this, you know, this heartthrob pop star in that role.
I didn't recognize him.
I know, yeah. Well, that's, I mean, another reason why I think the casting is so good, because, you know,
See, that's why I'm the film bro. I don't recognize Harry Styles, but I knew Mark Rylance and James D'Arcy as soon as they showed up.
Yeah. Oh, and I knew Kenneth Branagh from my, you know, days of rewatching Much Ado About Nothing. You know,
I love Kenneth Branagh. He's fantastic.
Spectacular. Yeah.
So this is premature. It's still early in the year.
Sure.
But I actually nominated this film for 10 Academy Award categories.
Nice. I like it.
I'm not saying this is going to happen. Who knows what other powerful movies come out, right?
So let me guess. I'm going to guess probably picture, director, lead actor for Finn Whitehead, supporting actor for Mark Rylance, original screenplay? No, adapted screenplay, because it was based on a book.
Well, I don't think it was based on a book.
One of the
I think it
screenplays.
was. I mean,
I think it was original.
yeah. Although it's always a tricky thing. Like, is it original if it's based on true events? you
Yeah,
know?
and like, all
I say
these
no,
like
but a lot of people say yes.
biographies about it.
Yeah,
I think this was like a 20-page screenplay.
I would not be surprised.
Screenplay, probably editing. Like I said, editing, score, cinematography, and I don't know what else.
Well, anyway, so from the back to the front, sound mixing, original score, visual effects, production design, original screenplay, cinematography, supporting actor Mark Rylance, best actor Fionn Whitehead, director and picture.
I like it. The only thing I would add is the costumes. Which, I mean, it wasn't like there were any costumes where I went like, whoa, that's a great costume, but very satisfying recreation.
Very authentic.
Yeah.
But these
Also,
are the ones
you could tell Ken Bragg was important because he had a hat.
Yeah, yes. He had the important hat.
So, well, those are the categories that stand out to me. I don't know that it'll win Best Picture, but I think it definitely deserves to be nominated.
Yeah.
If they're like opening it up to 10 nominations,
10,
yeah,
right?
it'll
Yeah,
probably
it's 10.
slide in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's had that much of an impact on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't like this thing where they said it can be any the best picture can be anywhere from 5 to 10. I mean, that's just stupid. It's commit to 10. You can't say that there aren't 10 great films every year. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's like hundreds that get released.
Yeah. I mean, come on. It's like
Just pick 10.
Yeah. I definitely nominated for best picture for all the awards you guys mentioned. I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how things play out because the Academy is a very strange beast. They chose the King's Speech over the Social Network. For goodness sake.
But they do they like World War II apparently.
They like World War II. Yeah, I could see this. I could see this being a big
It could get
contender.
some nods. It'll get some nods.
Yeah.
I think, come February or whenever they announce the nominations.
And whatever happens, it's time for Christopher Nolan to get a Best Director nomination because
Has he never been nominated?
Never.
Fucking hell, he should have been nominated for Inception.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like
That was a bit of an oversight.
yes. I mean, you think like, well, I mean, like, okay, I love Black Swan. Black Swan is a great film, but you can't tell me that Darren Aronofsky's direction of Black Swan was better than Christopher Nolan's direction of Inception. And Darren Aronofsky was nominated, and that film won an Oscar for Best Actress. So I mean, it's like it's pure snobbery because Nolan will always be a geek director, because he plays around with toy spaceships and superhero costumes.
Someone summed it up. Like, this is why I keep using the term film bros, because it's him applying a very smart, talented point of view on traditionally masculine stuff. So stuff like revenge stories and spaceships and Batman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I get it. So I think I'd see him nominated for this. I don't know if I would say he should win. It's not. Again, we're only halfway through the year, and there are other movies that I've liked better than Inception, than Dunkirk. But I could see him get nominated. I would not be upset if that happened.
To me, a nomination is already a big honor in itself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, and especially having not gotten it before. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about where this is gonna fall on my list because surprisingly, I actually found some thematic overlap with War for the Planet of the Apes. To bring that up again, and I can't quite decide which I like better. I love them both. So we'll see when I do the final list. But before we go, do you guys have any final thoughts you want to throw out there?
Okay.
I just want to say this really quickly. I think my favorite scene of the movie is when the torpedo hits the ship.
Oh, that's a great scene.
That's just like, that is evocative shit right there. That is just like, bam, it's dark, it's loud, you have no idea what's going on. These people are drowning, they're gonna die.
Oh, it's pretty astounding.
That was great.
A lot of so many iconic scenes and shots in this movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, like the scene of Cillian Murphy sitting on the ship. That's like, that could be my freaking wallpaper on my computer. It's so iconic.
That's an incredible shot. Yeah.
It's incredible what Hoytama was doing here. Like, a lot of it is still burned in my mind. I'm still thinking about it and meditating on it, and how crazy it is.
Yeah.
How crazy iconic some of these shots and scenes were.
Oh, it's incredible.
And,
yeah.
So, anyways, final thoughts. I'm pretty critical about this whole editing issue stuff, and I don't like to be critical for critical sake. So I have like what would I do differently? Do you guys even want to bother hearing about this?
No, yeah, go ahead. Take it away.
I think I would have taken inspiration from the movie Titanic and structured it that way. I would have had two separate films. I would have focused. The first half would have been pure despair on Dunkirk, and the second half would have been the rescue. And in the middle of that, to connect the two, is that point, like in Titanic where they hit the iceberg and the film just shifts completely. Whereas
it's a whole new thing,
right, in my Dunkirk, the iceberg would have been the ships leaving England.
I like that.
The ships deciding to leave England to rescue the boys.
I think for me, you get the despair like just right off the bat. Just him trying to find a place to take a dump, and he sees a guy burying a soldier on the beach. Like right there, that's the image.
Yeah.
Is that like there is no escape from these horrors.
Yeah.
I think my first half of the film would have been very Lord of the Flies. That scene in the ship. It would have
totally
a lot of that in the first.
No, that's such a good point, because there's that gene is in there, and
There's my film nerd.
I think that's so interesting, and I am let me just say this. I mean, I love this movie. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. But you bring up Titanic. I mean, I think that's the gold standard of stories like this, and I think I don't think any movie this decade has touched Titanic for me, but that's another story.
I think the key difference there is Titanic. It's Rose's story. Like it's told from her perspective. So there's gonna be like the stuff in the flashbacks. It's gonna be like grandiose and kind of operatic and emotional.
Yeah.
Like Dunkirk, it's different aims. It's boots on the ground, very much point A to point B to point C. It's very matter of fact storytelling.
I would have expanded the Tommy character in that role. And what does Titanic and Dunkirk have in common? They're both colossal
Boats.
disasters.
Yes.
And boats.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and also in a way, I think I like Titanic and Dunkirk for opposite reasons. Like I like kind of the stripped down realism of Dunkirk, but perversely, what I love about Titanic is it is so over the top and operatic and just pulsing with emotion and glorious colors and the swells of that amazing music by James Horner. So I mean, again, this is one of the most exciting things about film as a medium. I think seeing like these kind of different approaches to similar things. And that's where I think the director's personality comes into it.
For sure.
You can't find two filmmakers working on this scale. You can't find many filmmakers working on this scale more different than James Cameron and Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
The British gentleman, versus the guy who, reportedly told a studio executive to go fuck himself. You know what I mean?
I believe it.
Well,
Me too.
Nolan is up there now. He can tell executive producers to go fuck themselves anytime he wants.
Yeah, maybe he'll start. It's like, okay, once you make a movie about an event that Americans didn't care about, that or modern Americans that whose biggest star is Kenneth Branagh, then it's like then you've got like real power, I think. and it only cost $100 million, which is really economical,
In this game.
Yeah,
relatively
it
speaking.
was what the production cost was like 160.
They said Box Office Mojo originally reported 150, and it was an error. They corrected it. It's actually just 100. Not kind of marketing.
So then how?
That's
it was
fucking crazy.
I know it was cheaper than Mad Max Fury Road.
It's cheaper than Valerian.
Yeah, it's cheaper than
That's fucking
Valerian.
crazy.
I know, it's insane.
I heard that the extras in the background, they actually painted cutouts.
Yes, yeah.
That's nuts.
That delights me. That delights me. The old school film buff. Sorry, were you gonna say something about that?
No, I was a reminder that I need to see Valerian this weekend.
Yeah, I need to see
I'm
too,
actually
yeah.
going to see that.
Yeah, looks like fun.
I
We got a podcast about it coming up.
I enjoyed
I might not be able to make that.
Okay, that's okay.
So
We can-
heads up on that.
We can hold that. Max and I can hold down the fort. I think that wraps it up. Anything else, you guys?
It's not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie of the year. It's not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie ever. It's
I
not
was
my
gonna say
favorite.
he's got more coming out this year. This is the best year ever.
It's not my favorite of the year, but I'm glad I saw it. It's a well put together film. I had my fun, and this is a story that's worth being told. And I'm glad they got someone good at telling stories to do it.
I agree, Patrick.
It completely surprised me in a lot of ways that I never expected. And I'm very serious about the categories that I nominated it for. I think it's fully deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Christopher Nolan always surprises me because I watch most of his films at least once a year, most of them, and some of them 2 or 3 times a year. Top Inception. I like to think I know him really well, and each film of his I see, I realize I do and I don't. There's certain trademarks that pop up, but everything is a little bit of a surprise, and this was too. It's a very stripped down film, kind of basics of survival movie, but it's very affecting and beautiful and as well, and I think it's going to stay with me for quite a while.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up. But sorry.
I guess a side point. When I first saw it, I mean, the way he filmed it was very intimate in terms of putting it into soldiers' perspectives. And what came to mind the first time I saw it, I was like, man, this reminds me a lot of Malik's Thin Red Line.
Interesting.
And then later,
I did think about Terrence Malick watching this.
I was poking around the internet, and it turns out that Thin Red Line is one of his key inspirations.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I know. Yeah. I got to say more about that now. Now that we're getting on to Malick, this idea of like fragmentation and Malick. He's really a purveyor of the idea that you don't necessarily need to do like whole complete scenes. You can catch like fragments of a character's existence to show the audience their soul, and Dunkirk's very much like that. It's kind of a mosaic of these characters, I think.
Right. It's an ensemble piece, and it really gets to the scope of this entire event, and they captured it beautifully, very well. Anyways, I'm still blown away by the fact that this only cost $100 million to make. In today's money, that's peanuts. That's really nothing.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean that's. I think that's like how much Gravity costs. It's
right.
I don't know. I mean, like you always expect with filmmakers that of this scale that the budget is going to go up and up and up and up. And it's like for him it's going down because Interstellar was $160 million. So it's like I don't know. The studio must just love him.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the aerial scenes, like seeing like the Spitfires and the German planes. I mean, other filmmakers like George Lucas, they would have like digitally put all kinds of crap in the background, flying around. And
Yeah.
This didn't need any of that.
No.
All you had was fucking like 3 planes. I mean, in a lot of ways, it resembled like the 1977 Star Wars.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, and I think
And that was enough.
Yeah,
That was so
it was
enough.
and I think like I was really struck by he repeated a trick he started doing in Interstellar, which I love, where he would have the camera like right kind of seemingly on the hull of the spaceship, like kind of moving with it, and he did that with the planes, like having it really close, and if the plane tilts, the camera tilts as well. And
Yeah.
it felt like you were really like in touch with the metal, and you could see the texture.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
It was it's so yeah, it's so great.
Also, I don't know that anybody else has said this, but it feels like the most organic film of the year, if there was such a thing.
Like in terms of
Just the way it was presented,
Sure.
with all the practical effects,
Yeah.
and really bringing the film out, like just celluloid itself. Also, on that note, I thought it looked amazing in 70mm. I actually preferred watching it in 70mm than in IMAX.
I did too, actually. Yeah, I like. I don't know. There's a vibrancy in a reference to film. I think, like
It moves differently.
Yeah,
Also,
and it's weird where you can see the flicker. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
what I noticed with the 70mm and IMAX, the contrast is unparalleled compared to digital and 35mm.
Oh,
When you
okay.
see images in the foreground and in the background, there's an amazing clarity to them, which is why when they say it's like watching 3D without the glasses, that's what they mean. There's a very natural look.
There's more clarity. You're saying in IMAX than
Yes.
70.
Well, IMAX and 70mm are very similar.
Sure.
With IMAX, you get more. With IMAX, you get more of the y-axis, the vertical view.
Right,
With 70mm, you get more of the x-axis, the horizontal view. But
Right.
the film is very similar in the way they record the contrast, and that really adds to the experience, I think. So I hope they actually do more films in 70mm. It's hella expensive. But
Well, IMAX just said they're gonna scale back on 3D, so I mean, makes I don't know. I like that, but
I suppose it's appropriate with video gamey, comic booky type of movies, but traditional storytelling, I just prefer film.
yeah, I do too. Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting. I realize that every movie that's topped my top 10 list of each year in this decade, except for one, has been a movie shot on film. And I think that's kind of
It just moves differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so here I am. Before, when I went to go see Dunkirk in IMAX, before the movie starts, they show commercials and featurettes and things like that. And all of that is digital. And I was watching it, and I noticed how the way it moves, it was actually kind of giving me a headache.
Interesting.
The way it refreshes and the way it moves and the contrast. But when I watched...
It's not quite as sharp.
No, no.
It's a little... I mean,
It's
digital
not
does
smooth.
slightly blur the images as well.
Right, but then when Dunkirk came on, it was pure IMAX cameras. It's just a smoother viewing experience.
That's interesting.
So that's why I say it's the most organic film of the year.
Sure. No, I like that. Yeah, and I think audiences, do know the difference. Which I mean, I didn't see The Hobbit in 48 frames per second, but I imagine that's why people were building and stuff and everything.
I kind of liked it. I don't know why they don't do that more.
Okay. Well, yeah, I didn't
okay.
see it. So.
Like it felt very video gamey, honestly. Like
Okay.
seeing it, like it felt like watching a game cutscene, just in the smoothness of it
I get that.
and kind of the surreality of it. But it was all right.
I feel like a subject for a future podcast is being laid out here. But I think we're gonna leave it at that. I'm brain dead. But if you like this podcast, please click thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. Still don't follow us on Twitter. That's still not updated. Maybe someday. So you can hope if you want.
We'll hire a social media consultant.
We will
when
hire
we
a social
start,
media consultant.
when we start actually making money.
When there's a T.H.O. movie reviews in every city in the world.
When there's money to be made.
In the very lucrative art of film criticism.
Yeah, in self-published online media.
Oh, well, once again, I'm your self-publishing host, Bennett, Campbell, Ferguson. I'm here with Shaunette. I'm here with Patrick Belin. And from all of us here at T.H.O. Movie Reviews, happy movie watching.
We all just instinctively wave at the iPhone. Like
Yeah, I
it's,
know, right? Like they can see us.
Yeah.
Oh, they can see us. You know, you don't think Apple's watching us right now?
Well, that's a great note to end on.